just get into our youth pastor energy for a few seconds. As you guys know, for the last 6 months, me and Tana have been on a nationwide search to find the best boy, and today we're actually really excited to announce that we found him.
The search is over!
Tom?
We did it, Joe! Get up for Tom!
There he is, the best boy. You have our word.
I was drinking in your bathroom.
That's a classic example of why you're the best boy.
Tom has been waiting in the bathroom for the last 16 hours with nothing but Coors Light to keep him company, and now he's ready to talk about his Christian past. We got some, Hobbit effects going on.
Anymore, yeah. We're so good at having guests. We've wanted to interview Tom for a while because Tom used to be super evangelical.
It's true.
Not just a little bit. Stomp and step for Jesus evangelical.
Yeah. Cast demons out of people evangelical.
I mean,
Incredible.
ideal.
What is it like having that kind of faith? I can't imagine.
I mean, I never walked on water, but I also never tried, so...
You just were born into evangelicalism?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you're born in the South, it just happens to you, for one.
Christianity happened to me.
But yeah, Southern Baptist Church, K through 12, same private school, from 2nd grade to 12th grade, same building, same church.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Whoa.
school,
Deeply
home,
religious.
church, everything's
No
that.
separation.
No,
It's
no
just
separation.
constant
Yeah, for
Christianity.
sure. And it was also, it was really easy just to be it was the biggest church in the state of Arkansas. It was like a mega church.
It was
in addition.
Duggar adjacent, right?
I mean, the Duggars, it's funny, when we first moved to that area, the Duggars lived across a field from the church I went to in a tiny, tiny house before they built their big house that's on their TV show, which was then just 2 miles down the street from where I lived.
Yikes.
Yeah, I actually knew the Duggars really well growing up.
Damn, and were they just seen as the greatest Christian family that ever did walk the face of
Were
God's green
they
earth?
known before?
I mean...
Did they already have their TV show?
No, the TV show was, I think they started at 19, and probably 19 kids. And I think whenever I moved there, they probably only had 14 or 12 or something. I mean, it was still crazy. But
Only their first quiver full.
Yeah, they were definitely around. I mean, I hung out with them all the time, at their house.
Whoa.
I need to get this. I've been waiting for this for a long time to put this on, the record or whatever you want to call it. Jim Bob Duggar, the family patriarch, I have knocked him to his ass more than once on an ice skating rink playing a game called Broom Ball, where you basically have to check people without hockey pads on and chase a rubber ball around with sticks. It's actually really fun.
Damn, you've lived a lot of people's fantasies.
Yeah, that's-
But I know, I have sprinted across an entire ice rink just to slam him into a wall and knock him on his ass. I've checked most of the Duggar kids to the ground.
Wow.
If you need to live that through me, you are more than welcome to.
That's a really nice image.
And it was fully sanctioned by God, all right? No malice was intended at the time.
But yeah, so that was the kind of people who were around me growing up. But even then I could tell that my parents were they're a little weird. They were a little we don't want y'all spending too much time with them, but we are friends with them through family friends, so.
Guys, we're all Christians. But
Did you know anyone who wasn't Christian or your type of Christian? How close were you to people that weren't?
Not close.
Not at all. You didn't have a family friend you spent a lot of time with that wasn't? Okay.
No, I mean, it was all family, and then it was all school friends, and then you went to church on Sunday, and half the people who went to my school went to that church because it was in that big church. So in all the Sunday school rooms is where I had school every day. I mean, it was big. It was bigger than you think. There's over 500 kids there, K through 12. So it's not small. I mean, it's small, but there's still enough space for it to not feel like one
Right.
building.
how secular versus religious was the secular education?
None.
It was God created the earth. Hi, welcome to biology. God created the earth in 5 days or whatever.
I mean, we didn't even talk about evolution, That wasn't even a thing.
Not even on the table as an option.
No. I mean, we were aware of it, but that was also in the early 2000s where it was it's maybe more normal now, but then it was just my public school friends, they are being tempted all the time at school because they're being taught evolution. And
it's such a temptation.
It's scary.
The wicked pleasure of believing in evolution you would never imagine.
I mean, it was so true. That was a big thing. It was I would see some public school friends who were at church on Sundays, and they were always just talking about how difficult it was for them, to be shown the worldly stuff all the time. It was so hard for them.
So
girls can wear whatever they want, and they're being tempted all the time, as opposed to my dress code at school, shit like that.
Damn.
Did you have your own come to Jesus moment, or was it just from the time you were born up until
That's a
whenever
great one.
your faith started falling apart?
That's a good one.
You got it. Run
because
with that.
So like I'm guessing everybody, at least on the show, is at least broadly aware of evangelical ways of like coming to salvation and stuff like that.
Yes, we have gone on their Reddit threads. We're actually
And they have come on our thread.
They are always in our comment section.
If there's one person more annoying than a true believing aggro Mormon, it's an aggro evangelical.
They are
and when they start criticizing Mormonism, I'm like, this is a family discussion.
I do love whenever I see y'all's like videos where you're just like, are the Christians okay? And it's like, they are not. Like, they're so not okay. You know, you're always being surrounded by, like, especially at the big church that I went to, that pastor, you know, he's a big deal. He's now the head of the Southern Baptist Convention and then just stepped down after all the sexual assault allegations came out over the years.
Not against him.
Just
the convention.
Against pastors and people and how they shuffled it around and never reported it.
It seems to be a pretty common problem among those Christian denominations.
I thought that story was pretty unique, actually, like to them in particular.
Mega churches, is it just like one main pastor and that's kind of the face of the mega church?
I mean, it's definitely a bit of a cult of personality.
Yeah,
you know,
it seems
like he had a big deal. His son, I think, now is like the head pastor of it, so he's very much like passed it along. And his other son was the head of he was the football coach for the school, which was also like there, and then
like
also had
pastor.
a multi-million-dollar football stadium for a high school that has 500 kids K through 12 at it, because rich people go to that church and they donate money to have it. So like everyone hated our school because we're a tiny private school, but we kick people's asses because we have coaches we can pay for and like a lit stadium and like actual training. Because it's weird. It gets weird.
It's weird how much like high school sports gets turned, like when they have posters in Salt Lake of like the people on the high school football team, I'm like, is that good for kids to just like be on and have their image broadcast around the city? I don't know, I just feel like they're too young to be like having it be that intense of an identity to the general public.
Well, especially when you tie that into like, we're praying every time before practice, before football games.
Was that praying with an A or an E? Sorry. It could go either way with these.
You're not wrong. No, it's just, I mean, it's crazy. You know, you're like, God's on our side, you know, like in a stupid fucking football game.
Did you watch Facing the Giants growing up?
Oh yeah, that we got to go out of school for a day during a school day and go see it in theaters and watch Sandra Bullock. That's The Blind Side. We also got to go see that movie because she was barely
any football Christian adjacent movie. 100%. Remember the Titans, you're in there, or was that too progressive?
No, we watched Remember the Titans. That was just more like a roll the TV cart into
it's like math substitute teacher.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I don't know math.
No, but like sports very much ruled the school. It's actually funny you're bringing that up, and I know we have to get back to me talking about how I got saved and all that, but there was a time my senior year of high school where this kind of shows how serious I was about like my faith, was that we were always critical of the fact that the school made such a big deal of sports. We're like, it should be more about like our faith. We're a Christian school. And like me and my group of friends were very critical of that, right? And they made this promo video, like, because they have like media production. It's a massive church. So they use the media like tech that they have at the church to make really high quality stuff, you know, like for your promos for your games and whatnot. And they made one that was so god awful, like them up on it, like football players on a stage while like a crowd just like doing this below them. No clips of them playing, just them standing there with like a football, like holding it at them while they get like worshipped on a stage. It was very weird. And we went into the same studio because my buddy worked for the church as like a high schooler doing like media stuff, and we filmed with the same cameras like a parody of it where we were the chess team and we were just like acting ridiculous and like using the same music, the same lighting setup, the same fog machines and everything.
That's totally something we would do.
And we got in so much trouble.
Really?
Yes, I got called because we were calling out.
Parody.
There's a couple like football players who called themselves the trio, and they would do this. Like a triangle. They were like flashing that
Trinitarian.
Yeah, we were making fun of them, and like their parents got fucking pissed, and I got to go into the like. So our principal is technically
the trio.
There's a principal, but then the head pastor, that guy is over us. Like he's like the actual top of the line person. I'm in his office like over this shit, like totally.
So you're, in terms of your conversion,
right?
Were you just all in the whole time, or
no? So there's like a moment of faith, like a moment of professing faith, like. If you believe in your heart that God, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart
do you
that
like
God raised him from the
schedule
dead.
that, or is it just as in
kind of spontaneous?
It's about your turn.
Spontaneous salvation, or
do you feel like within you that like it's coming for me soon? I think I should.
I feel it bubbling.
Or is it just like in the moment?
It's funny because like there's always they call it an altar call a lot. It's like, hey, anybody want to come down to the altar? Like it's offered up to you every single Sunday.
Oh, kind of open mic.
I mean, yeah, sort of.
Do people
but just
do
to come
it more
down
than once?
Well, I did, but there's reasons for
You gotta
that.
be saved over and over again.
Because I think the first time was probably like 5 or 6 or maybe 7. I was very young, and it was in like the kids ministry, and like you're singing some like kids ministry song, which is like they're always cute and whatever, but at the same time it was like there's that whole thing where if you're like singing with a bunch of people, there's like that high that you get or whatever.
Yeah.
I experienced that very intensely through worship music. It's actually why I can't go to church. Like I have to like if I even hear worship music, I get triggered pretty hard because I used to like weep. Like I was like a very intense like worship service boy. So like I can't do that anymore.
I think a lot of people can.
Yeah,
relate to that.
totally. I'm sure y'all have similar experiences, and so like it was just like, oh my God, I'm feeling the Holy Spirit. They're telling me what that could be. They're like, you might like they're on the microphone, be like, Spirit, move through this room and like move people to Jesus. And it's just like that, and you're like, I'm 7. Like,
Next we'll pretend we're pirates.
Yeah, and I've seen this over and over again, every Sunday for like my entire life that I can remember. So like, yeah, I totally went down the altar, like got saved, like crying, and then got baptized.
At 7, I bet that was so cute.
It was so little, and then I got baptized in like they have a baptismal that's like, this worship center is huge. You can hold almost 10,000 people in it, like it's massive. And they have like a baptismal like up in the air, essentially in the wall behind where the choir sings.
Whoa!
And so they shine a spotlight up on you, and you get baptized by the pastor of the church.
Damn!
Like there's
that's
pictures of me doing
theatrics. That's impressive.
The pageantry is kind of lit.
Yeah.
You get baptized right after you do the altar thing?
Not the same day usually.
Okay.
Usually maybe like a week or two later.
Was it around that time, like 7?
Like probably 5, 6, 7. It was really young.
I felt very deeply personally converted in ways that were like even disconnected from my physical participation in meetings. Like it felt like a just me and Jesus thing. Mm-hmm. But like Mormon meetings and the way that they, engineer that experience for people is very subdued, very hypoactive, as it were. Like you're not supposed to show a lot of emotion. You don't clap, you don't cheer, you don't get excited. But like, I can't imagine being a kid and having that like live music.
Really
You would feel some
You would have
shit.
become a pastor of a megachurch.
Easily.
Like you have that.
You have it. Tanner, you totally have the
Thanks,
charisma.
guys.
Mormonism was definitely tamping that down.
Oh yeah, like it was a big deal. Like Sunday, and then like get to Christmas time, it's like we're gonna be putting on 3 days worth of like Christmas like performances.
The best
and shit.
Christmas
That's gotta be like
pageant
being
you've ever seen.
That's gonna save this
We're
town.
gonna make all the poor schools look like shit.
And I was involved in it too. Like the kids ministry has a whole performance that they do. And you go to practice for weeks and you do it. It's just
Sounds
like
amazing.
It's fun, and it's fun. And so like how you're saying, you really embodied that like on your own in your own personal way. That wasn't just about the theatrics of it.
Yeah.
But you actually did. And that's why as I maybe was like 12, 13 or 14, I had another moment of just being like, as I started to take my faith more seriously, it's like, oh, I don't think I'm actually saved. That felt more like a young kid thing. This is me, I was like 13 years old. Like that was a young kid thing.
Yeah.
And that like, no, that wasn't a real a faith.
When I was a
profession.
child, I accepted Jesus as a child, but now that I am a man,
I pulled up a Bible on my phone for the first time in probably 7 or 8 years.
Whoa.
Yesterday to like, actually, and today,
brush
just
up.
to like brush up on my stuff a little bit. Because I need
Don't
to
worry,
make
you
sure.
won't need it.
It mattered so much
Can
to
I
me.
actually drink this?
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah.
of course you can.
I might steal a sip or two, but you always
Yes.
steal sips of mine when we hang out, so
I want you to, but unfortunately there is going to be lipstick on it, so is that going to gross you out? Are you sure?
it'd be really hard to gross
Okay.
me out
All right.
overall.
Cool. So you get more converted at around 13.
Right, yeah, and that was like, and then I got baptized again, right? Like, because like baptism is what is just the follow-up of like, this is how we then show everybody, like,
Right.
yeah, this doesn't do anything to save you, but it's like the public thing to do, to be like, hey, we love this. And churches like that actually like keep track of this stuff. They have like documents that like write this down. Like I have like my mom, I'm sure in a box somewhere has my baptism certificate. It's signed by that pastor.
And they get one every time?
Do you get
I
multiple
think they
baptisms?
probably did.
Oh, wow.
No.
Just multiple confessions of
And that
being saved.
even that was like, they asked me. It was just like, hey, well, like you have done this before, and I like had to kind of like explain to them like, well, I felt that I was too young, and now that I'm like older, it's just like, no, I really feel like now I'm actually more able to understand what I was doing. Now I feel like I'm actually professing like a true faith in Jesus, like,
So
and
it's
I
not
want to
necessarily
like.
common for people to like repeatedly.
No, that was more because I was just so zealous about my faith that it was just like, no, I'm like not saved. Like, oh my God, I
need
really
the
thought
big
I
guns
was.
again.
And a lot of times it was definitely like on the, the back step of something like, oh, I've caught myself sinning or doing something recently, and I've like been questioning like my own faith. And then it's like, oh, well, damn, maybe I'm like not saved. Let me think about it.
I
and then it's like,
entertained the idea that dinosaurs actually existed. Satan's been working real hard on me. I need a recommitment.
I did get to see Ken Ham came and spoke at our church. We talked about this. Yeah. Definitely got to see Ken Ham and walked out of there being like, honestly, I don't fucking get it. I think that guy's kind of full of BS.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't bother me that I didn't know what it was, like, or how things happened, but I was like, I don't think that guy's right. And then I did it again, actually, probably when I was 17. It was like junior, senior of high school. It was just like, no, this is very serious now. And I was like, at that point, I was so serious, guys. Like,
it sounds like you had like maybe a degree of scrupulosity.
For
like,
sure, yeah.
I mean, I was very I was just it was so funny because like, oh, all my classmates, like most of them are here, not because they want to be at this like stupid private Christian school. Most of them have friends in public schools that they hang out with. Like they don't hang out with like people here. Some of them don't because they don't want to be there. Their parents are the ones who are pushing them to be there because like maybe they're a problem kid and they like don't want them to get into trouble because you'd get kicked out for anything there. But it was just so easy to be like, nobody around me cares about their faith like I do.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they really don't. Like, I learned about masturbation in 8th grade from a book telling me not to do it. Like, that's how...
a pretty typical story, I feel like. A lot of people start learning about stuff when someone's like, hey, you're not doing this, right? And it's like, I didn't even know.
Yeah, my buddies were like, what? Like, how was that even possible? And I was like, I didn't know there was anything I didn't know you could do more.
How did things change? Like, once you hit puberty and, I imagine, like, sexual urges are really vilified.
Oh,
did that seems like maybe why teenagers also entrench, because there's, like, more shame suddenly coming on.
I mean, yeah, it was, like, a lot, but, at that point, I think it was 8th grade whenever we got this book. It's called Every Young Man's Battle.
It sounds like the evangelical equivalent of
Little Factory Talk.
Yeah, for young men only.
Oh God!
Yeah,
of course.
If people like you, we should bring Tom back and have like evangelical reacts. To,
that would actually be really fun. I could get down with that.
Yeah, Tom's becoming an evangelical influencer. After
hype him up enough.
Go
and we'll
follow
get him on
him.
TikTok.
Instagram is linked in the description box.
You've sort of already spiritually appeared on the channel through means of our vasectomy short that we did.
You did a short on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did I not see that?
It was we watched this 80s Mormon theater piece.
It's niche.
About how the people of the world want zero population.
Oh, you showed me a clip of that. That was awesome.
So we did a TikTok of me rolling up to the vasectomy clinic with my squad.
Oh,
but you were the squad who actually rolled up with me into the vasectomy clinic.
I did hold a phone. I videoed the entire thing.
Yep.
Stood right there while my wife held your hand the whole time and you sucked on nitrous oxide so hard the machine told you to stop.
I never heard that.
The machine started beeping and the doctor was like, yeah, you're taking too much. You need to
I have no recollection of that.
You're like holding it really good.
Yeah, no, that exactly. I didn't know you were supposed to just like breathe through it, so I'm like he was breathing directly into the guy's face.
He was railing.
And he's like, all right, you're all done. And I was like, great. just turns off the
I can't believe you didn't tell me that story.
It was so funny because you were being hilarious about it. Because when I got mine, I opted not to do that. And then seeing you get it, just because it was extra money and I was paying for it with like
his wife paid for it for me.
Also, Abby paid for that for him. But I would donated plasma to get enough money. I wasn't making a lot of money then. I donated plasma to get a vasectomy, so I only had I was budgeting.
Wow.
Okay.
No excuses.
So you're a teenager. You're becoming more entrenched in evangelicalism.
Yes.
How's purity culture playing into all of that? Like how?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Talk about the shame.
The shame. Definitely less shame directed at me as a man, for sure. But the puberty talk, there was no such thing as there's no sex education, no safe sex talk. There was 6th grade. we're going to talk about puberty. And it was like a doctor came in, and then like a nurse practitioner came. Like for the girls, it was like a lady, and we split us apart. That was fine because it was actually just like, here is like the biological thing that's happening to you, which was nice. Except it was my dad who was the doctor who talked to all the guys.
Nightmare.
So that was cool. He was also the same doctor who, like, when it came time for sports physicals, had to give every single guy the whole like 2 fingers up in your junk, like turn and cough thing to see if you have a hernia.
What, you just constantly have to do that in sports?
Every single year you have to get rechecked off by a doctor
What?
so you can play like high school sports. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
The chiropractor who didn't do me. He was like, whatever test that's called.
I don't remember.
No,
what
and
it's
he's
called.
like, reason I don't want to.
What are the chances that high school kids get hernias? Is
It
that
happens,
often
and it can
because
like
of the sport?
Yeah,
just weightlifting, training, and
Okay.
stuff like
All
strain on a young body that's going through puberty. Yeah. Anyway, so that wasn't great, and then I think in 9th grade we had our health class, and that was like, we're gonna talk about STDs, and it was just, here's pictures of genital warts, here's pictures of like this shit.
I remember those even.
Yeah, and that was just like,
But it was like,
scaring
this is why we wear condoms. But yours was like,
No, this was
This
just
is why
like,
you
don't
never have
Yeah.
sex.
Don't
or
you
you'll die.
dare. Girls were getting in trouble for being like, oh, well, like, we have to wear like polo shirts or button downs and then like khakis or jeans, and like shirts tucked in. Like, you get in trouble if your shirt's untucked. Like, we had a dress code, and part of that was definitely to keep like women, essentially women, covered up more so than like the
girls
boys.
even.
So excuse me.
No, not
Yeah,
like, you didn't say
teenage
anything wrong.
girls. Yeah,
Just-
keep teenage girls covered up, and like, oh, we can see like. At the time, it was also like, it was the 2000s, so we have like 3 straps going on right here of like different little undershirts and like then your bra
Totally.
shit. And it's just like, I
Waist
can,
layer.
and it was just like, those straps are too thin, they're too sexy, type of shit. You need
The
to go
strap
home.
over the understrap over the t-shirt.
And it was just like, well, the bottom, like one of those straps is like it's like a spaghetti strap, I think is what they were called. And that was like, you couldn't wear spaghetti straps. They had to be thicker straps, so it wasn't sexy.
Sister, you need to enlarge the border of your phylacteries.
In England, we all had a uniform, and we had to wear white shirts, just like cheap polyester white button downs with like a tie and blazer and everything.
Oh my
but
God,
it
that's
was
so cute, though.
For some reason, like, it was just a thing that like you could always see what kind of bra a girl was wearing. Like, no one really wore undershirts, so it was like, if you were wearing a bra with Snoopy on it, I remember I had a bra from H&M that had Snoopy on it, you could just see it. Like, teachers would see it, and it just, no one, but looking back, I'm like, was that weird for like,
Those high school boys
all
were.
these teenage girls were just walking. I don't know.
The high school boys
really a
definitely
thing.
were having like erections out the ass.
Yeah, but it was also like so common that it kind of. I mean,
Maybe it was
the
more
popular
normal.
girls would be more likely probably to wear like a lacy hot pink thing, whereas like. It was kind of like the less cool you were, like the less license you had to be more ostentatious with
Sexy
it.
with it, maybe.
Yeah, but just interesting. Anyway.
No, it was very, very downplayed and like intentional, like built into the way the school was supposed to function, like for sure.
City on a hill shit.
Did people ever date in that kind of, like, what was the...
Totally.
How did that go down?
So it's an interesting thing. Everybody like totally was like dating. I never dated anyone in high school, but I had obsessions with people that we then talked about later. So that was another thing.
Oh,
But
like with the person and you're
like with that person,
That
sort
must
of,
be
or I've
nice.
like kind of deconstructed that later as like, or like for a moment, like one time I like had been friends with this girl from 2nd grade on. We were so obviously into each other, but I never did anything, and she was never going to do anything about it. But we did everything together.
Was
And
it
then
wrong to date at that time?
No.
Okay,
no.
you just
my parents
you
would
were
have
too
been fine
focused
with
on the
it.
Lord.
I legitimately was though. Yeah.
So you thought you'd like get married as an adult, but like at this point in life it was inappropriate.
Yeah, totally. And at a certain point, I remember I became kind of like into this other girl who we did a lot of stuff with, or I did a lot of stuff with, and then like my senior year, I tried to ask my friend.
What kind of stuff? What do you mean by stuff?
Oh, we held hands one time, but also like we just spent like tons of time together and hung out, and like if you look through my Facebook photos, like from then, it looks like we're dating, but we never were dating.
Were you from a cult? Did people? Did a lot of people not kiss until the altar? I feel like the Duggars are like that, but like how
They
common
are like
is
they
that?
are like that. I definitely know.
And it seems to be playing out fine for them.
Yeah, that's going well.
No documentaries being made about that.
What
that's
would
for
you
sure.
have thought about people that didn't kiss until the altar?
I do remember there were times where I thought that was a cool thing to strive for.
I thought that was cool at some point too.
But also, I think at a certain point I then became to know myself. I was like, no, I would want to kiss, because I think I saw one of those videos one time where it's like a couple, they kiss for the first time at the altar and they attack each other in the grossest way.
I'd be willing to bet bet I know the one you're talking about. And I was like, I'm not going to be them.
Yeah, and I think I was just like, okay, no, I should probably kiss. Like, we should probably kiss.
That's like the one thing purity culture people have going for them is they often really good kisses because it's just like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, no, like I mean, even that girl who like we weren't dating, but we obviously were like super into each other. You know, we led like a Bible study together, like on a Wednesday night. Gorgeous. You know, whole deal. Yeah, it was like we would hug each other and we would just hug each other for like minutes on end. And then one time she was just like, you know, I can feel that you have a boner, right? And I was just like, yeah, I know. Aww. And she was just like, I don't think we should be doing this anymore. And I was like, I understand. Still not masturbating. I still had never masturbated. I didn't until I was in my 20s, you know, but it was just like, damn, like, you're right. Like, we are leading ourselves in a direction where we could mess up. We could do something wrong. And this is probably already wrong.
We are not supposed to connect as human beings.
Not at all. How it was explained to me is like, and where I ended up, especially around like my senior year, was like, your body is going to do that. Like, that's what your body's supposed to do. Right. It's if you act on that urge in any way is when you've crossed the line into sin.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was just like, my friends were like, man, like you get an erection. What do? You don't masturbate? And I was like, well, I didn't know I could until 8th grade. So that's a whole thing.
You recite the Pledge of Allegiance as fast as you can. You smack it.
But then it was just like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything with that. Like, so I must not be like sinning essentially. Right. And then you have a wet dream, and then it's like, it was explained to me in that book that is essentially the culmination of too much temptation in you, and that is the end result is like you have like committed sin.
What?
Yes.
That is truly fucked up.
Yeah, totally. And I would wake up and just be like, oh damn, like, oh no.
I mean, I felt that because no one had a conversation with me about sex. I wasn't allowed to attend the classes where they showed the works.
I mean,
and things.
Again, I only learned it through a book telling me not to do it.
Yeah, okay.
You know, nobody told me.
But I feel like in
outright saying it, I don't think they would outright say wet dreams.
In Mormonism, they're like nocturnal emissions may happen.
That's right. Once I read that book, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It makes you feel a little better.
But I don't think they really demonize them. If anything, it's almost like a badge of honor because it means that you've been good. And
yeah, I mean, but prior to that, I really thought.
And that's what my buddies were like, too. They're like, yeah, I don't have wet dreams anymore because I like go to McDonald's, which was the code word for I masturbated 3 times this week, you know? And it's just like, oh, well, I went on a family trip with my best friend and his parents to Minnesota, and when we were sharing a bed in a hotel room, I woke up and had a wet dream in a bed with my buddy, and it's just like, nobody woke up, but you're just like, is that not so fucked up? And I'm like 15 then, too, you know, like not just like a baby anymore, but like kind of a teenager.
Well, it's not fucked up because like you're asleep, so
no, and
nothing is fucked up about it.
But when you wake up as a kid that, you were just like, my life is in shambles. I am like literally terrible.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Being a religious, like scrupulous religious teenager was insane. I cannot believe that.
No, and I was so serious about trying to avoid that temptation, like. Oh, I have to walk to get to where like I get picked up every day, like from school, or where I go and get my car. When I had a car, then it was like I have to walk by where the cheerleaders practice every day, and I would walk by the cheerleaders and literally just look the other way, like turn my head because they're all wearing their Sophie shorts.
On Temple Square look away when they see me when I used to walk a dog on Temple Square, and if it was summer, I would watch them avert their gaze, but the sister missionaries would always look me in the eyes and smile at me.
Aww.
They didn't care what I was wearing.
Victoria's Secret in the mall. I'm walking like this.
Dude, I'm not kidding. Yes, I used to go to the mall and like pray in the food court, and then go like ask the Lord to lead me to people, and then I'd walk up to people and witness to them in the mall, and then if I had to walk by like Spencer's, which had like dildos in the window, you know, the display, and I had to walk by like, not like I knew what a dildo was either, but like I had to walk by like Victoria's Secret. We called it bouncing our eyes. You have to like, if you like turn around and you see something, you're like, oh, bounce your eyes. Like, and it would literally make it a physical movement.
Bounce it back.
And I would do that. I would literally be like, and it was the 2000s. It was some girl was wearing like, you know, low-waisted jeans, and you could see her whale tail, and just, look away. And you would do it like that. Like that physical, and it helped you like remember, you know, put a physical thing attached to what you're trying to do. So stupid. So cool. Purity culture is so terrible.
So you're witnessing on people as a teenager.
And also, because you were born in an area, it seems like a lot of people were evangelical in your area. Was that a common thing where just like random people would just be witnessing in malls?
No.
So you're the cream of the crop.
Yeah, a lot of pent-up sexual energy that needs to be spent elsewhere.
Yes. I mean, it was one of those things where it's like we were just looking for places that we could go and like trying to like essentially practice. Like you literally do get better at like walking up to random people and like trying to tell them about Jesus. Like if you just do it more often. So that was like kind of part of it too. But I mean, it's a really funny thing when you look at it. Like now it's just like, dude, you're in like where I lived had the most churches per capita in the entire state. You know, it's just like, dude, you're like walking into a mall to go witness to people who go to church every single Sunday. And you're just like, like, oh, they look more worldly because like maybe they're dressed a little skimpy or like maybe they're like, they went into Hot Topic and they shopped, even though I snuck into Hot Topic. Like, you know, it's just like one of those things where you're like, there are lost people around me. Like there truly are, you know, there are people who are unchurched. I am going to find them and tell them about Jesus in the most churched, like per capita, like city in the entire state, you know?
So were people just like, good on you?
I mean, sometimes,
like,
yes. Sometimes you very much encountered like get fucked kind of people. And I'm like, I'm 15. Like, I'm like also a little aggro about it too, you know? Like I gave it to people, like, you know, I didn't tell them, I never was like, you're going to hell. Like in like a negative way, but it was just like, you are going to go to hell. I truly believe this.
One of Ash's and my first date was at Liberty Park. This like teenage couple that had like busted in from Texas came to like witness to us. And I was like, yeah, you know, and I did my whole Bible spiel, and you could just like see it, just like, and like, we gotta get out.
Can't touch
and I also have compassion, you know. I'm not gonna
of course,
you idiots. Like I was there too.
It's just so funny.
We do role plays for proselytizing.
Yeah, I mean, you practice that stuff, and it was super important too. And it was just funny because there are people who'd be like, oh, you know, we're moving, you know, like some like pastor and his wife and like their kid, like, oh, we're moving from the church, and like the church would bless them and stuff. It's like, oh, what are you doing? It's like, oh, well, we're moving to like Atlanta, Georgia to go start a church. And you're like, you're going to like, you're just going to another southern state with tons of churches to go like plant a church because there's tons of unreached people there.
Well, is it because...
Like I had a friend who moved to Colorado to go start a church because they were like serious. So I'm like, are the churches there not adequate? Like what's the deal? Like I don't...
And it's not...
like...
Go ahead.
Well, wouldn't that be a way to gain status, is to have your own church and kind of have your... Because if in your
like, yes,
area, like
no.
a pastor's already kind of cornered the market...
And surely the most of their newfound audience isn't going to be like atheists or people outside of Christianity who are being reached and brought into the fold. It's going to be people from other denominations, right?
And
like,
sure, and because that's the thing, like I was brought up to think that like Catholics, they are not saved because they believe in like a works thing.
The
like,
great and abominable church,
yeah.
we get it.
I don't agree with you there, just kidding.
I mean, historically, oh my God.
Yeah,
get your shit
not
together.
I'm like low-key based.
Honestly kind of here for it a little bit. But, you know, so it was like, oh man, like Catholics aren't saved. Like, I got to reach Catholics. Mormons, I was taught that Mormons weren't saved.
Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing Mormon commercials on TV, and it was just like, I've just been really into this book, and this, you know, at some coffee shop, the girl's like, what is it? And she slides it over, and then the voiceover goes over, the Book of Mormon. And me being like, Mom, what is that about? They're talking about Jesus. And she was just like, don't listen to it. Like that, and it was that easy, just waved it off.
That's
I was
like Jack
okay.
Whalen's wet dream, like,
Yeah.
Mom, what is that? And then like everyone gets a funny feeling.
Yeah. Did you ever pray about the Book of Mormon, Tom? Because I think God would have given you
problem
a
number
little
one.
intel on that.
Which I just think it's so funny, like evangelicals just like targeting each other because like you're just not quite right. Mm-hmm. Like I definitely would have been told that like I didn't know anything about like Anglicans or Episcopalians or like any of those types of people. It's like, who are they? Like, what are they? Like, what is the differences? I came to care about those differences a lot as I got older, but it's just kind of funny that like I would have thought they were unsaved. You know, they need to be saved.
So it sounds like you're really good at being an evangelical. Like you were crushing
totally.
it. You were witnessing in the mall. You were doing stuff
On my own time. Not even being told to.
And it sounds like you had a bit of a superiority complex, as we all did when scrupulous and hiding on religion. Like, so you were kind of like better than your peers, or you know, you were like extra.
I mean,
You were playing the game.
Yeah, you
I
cared
care.
a lot. So did you, despite that, like, how was your self-worth, I suppose? Because I feel like a big part of the ex-Mormon experience, like Mormons growing up, are just constantly battling self-worth issues because it's always, you know, shame.
It's not about me.
How does that, because it seems like in the ideology you subscribed to, was there more grace, less grace? Like, I don't know. How...
It depends
What was
on
the
how
internal experience.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It depends
is there
on
a
how you
reason
look
you
at
were
it.
into
Did
Christian
you have
metal?
high self-esteem?
Dude, that's so fun. I think I probably did have high self-esteem, but I think I had self-esteem just because I didn't care. Like, I know I've talked about this, but like, and this is really vapid right here. We're about to be vapid. The fact that I feel like a sexy man now is like, I know it sounds so silly, but the fact that I've only felt that way about myself for only the past couple years is 100% a result of that, because I never even had an inkling that was something I should think about myself. Because it was always God first, others second, I'm third. We had that printed on shirts, like with our school logo, you know.
And merch fourth.
Yeah. And like, even after I left the church, it was years before I maybe came around to the idea that it's like, I could actually like care about myself in a way that was like, felt vapid to me when it was not.
Because they condition you to any kind of like genuine self-love as vanity. And
I remember when you getting a green shirt from Walmart for your birthday was like a big deal. Like,
Totally.
you were like, I have a green shirt now.
That's so cute.
And then
Totally. Now I have
everyone
many
comes in.
green shirts.
You've always been handsome, but you've like transformed yourself into more of like a mature, sexy vibe than you were like very childlike in college.
Yeah. Not that there's a specific Mormon teaching against green shirts, but it's like these weird things that you pick up as a kid that like no one tells you, but due to everything else going on, you're like, oh, I'm not going to draw attention to myself, like because green is my favorite color, and I think I saw that and was like, oh, if I want it that bad, it's because I want to call attention to myself.
Desire
so I need to
suspect.
There's definitely a lot of that at play, but I think it definitely just depended on how you wanted to internalize it. I definitely, if you get really into like, especially theology, like I did, I really enjoyed theology, and it was just like, you are like, like truly born into sin, like completely broken, completely unable to like
broken baby,
and
they honestly deserve to be aborted. Like they're sinful.
At this point, just don't even bring me
they
here.
don't get aborted with how sinful they are.
I mean,
in the womb.
Shouldn't that be? I'm joking,
it's
obviously,
through grace
but
that
shouldn't
you are
that
saved
be?
from abortion.
I mean, you joke about that, but at the same time, like that question gets brought up, and like over the years, I heard different answers, and some people were like, the Bible's pretty fucking clear about like we are all born into sin. From the second we exist, we are sinful. If you die, like what happens when babies die? Do they go to heaven? Like there's definitely teachers who kindly were just like, they definitely go to hell. And then other people were just like, well, there's some things that like kind of maybe help us indicate that like they like God has some kind of grace on them until a certain point in time.
Yeah,
they
Mormons are going to baptize them after they're dead.
They couldn't articulate it, to like a single verse. Like there's not a like really scripture that supports that, but like maybe like concepts that kind of get you there. But like that shit's rough.
Does that?
It's hard.
I mean, I imagine that they're really hard on children in these ideologies.
I mean, I would say like overall, like what. The church I went to was like gonna make you like have a really fun time, like it was since it was hello.
Not necessarily
since it was so like
not like an aggressive, but it is just like you should be very Christian or
yeah, totally. And everybody was convinced that they had to be, and it was funny because like I talked about how serious I was about my faith, that I got saved like 3 different times over the years, like because I just kept like realizing that I wasn't initially. I had friends who were just like so obviously like living in the world. They're so worldly, like they're obviously like doing bad things outside of school and whatnot, and like I was like, you guys aren't really saved. Like, you totally aren't.
You guys are fucking this up.
It does not manifest in your works, dog.
But especially the second I started dipping into Calvinism, then it was like, oh, those guys are so not fucking saved. They are not elect, I guarantee. It depends on how you take Calvinism. Some people will say that like the free will is there, but the Spirit is going to enable the salvation experience for some and not for others. And God chose them beforehand, but they still choose.
So then how's that free? Okay.
Like they will round around and round about it, just to make you feel good about it. But that's how it is.
Very cool.
Pretty cool though. Calvin Klein. I didn't know he's a theologian.
Who'd have thought?
Today I'm a Calvinist.
If you are an official Southern Baptist church, you are part of the largest religious organization in the United States. Southern Baptist,
like the hardcore event, like the evangelical.
But they are also the largest by body count in the entire United States. If you're a Southern Baptist church, you're part of the Southern Baptist Convention. They have over 11 million Southern Baptists registered with the church.
Wow. Huge political force.
Yeah, like actually a big deal. They have tons of money. It's kind of scary. And my pastor, remember, he became the head of the Southern Baptist Convention for a while until until last year when all that shit came out.
Big dog.
Then he stepped down very quickly because he just didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything personally that I'm aware of, but I think he's a piece of shit.
What have you learned from
regardless.
Succession? Just step down and yeah.
But at a certain point, you know, I became so convinced of my faith and whatnot that the more I learned about certain aspects, I was like, oh, well, why are there like people who speak in tongues? Like, why hasn't that ever been talked about in my church?
You weren't a speaking in tongues church.
No. The Southern Baptists do
Yeah.
not. Southern
I feel
Baptists
like
do not
you
do
could
that.
have though, like based on what you've. I mean, like.
Oh,
yeah,
I did.
You had the faith.
Samantha,
Okay.
I very much spoke in tongues. I assure you. Oh my God. I mean,
Can we get a little demo?
I mean, it was literally, quite literally. I used to go into my closet, close the door, get on my face, and pray in tongues to God, okay? That's like how serious I was because that's what the Bible says to do. It's not that fucking hard. Follow what Jesus said.
I
Pray in
feel
your closet in
like Tana's
secret.
really good at scatting, so I can imagine it's kind of a similar.
It's right.
I
when
don't
we
have the thing in
No,
me,
it's not.
but I'm like, could you summon like a degree of what you used to do just as a? I'm
mean, it
genuinely
would-
curious. I can even cut it out if you don't want it in.
No, it was, you know, you totally just be like, oh,
Okay, just make sounds and see what comes out.
Yeah, and what the whole point of that was, as it was described to me, was just like, and there are a couple verses that talk about it. I think Paul's talking about it, and it's just like, when you pray in the Spirit, you don't know what you say, but when you pray in the Spirit, you are putting like extremely like serious like prayer towards other people.
Just
You
like
don't know
a
anything
freebie
about.
for one random person somewhere.
Who knows?
Just-
Like anything that anything that the Holy Spirit is like
Sort of a
dictating
nice-
and moving. It was on
nice
like
idea.
like it was a great way to like spend time like in like a very serious state of just like
It's kind of
Almost like
being very
mantra
serious.
chanting.
Or like loving kindness meditation, just
Sure.
kind of sending out. You
Like
know.
I mean, if you can call it sending good vibes, essentially. But
Totally.
like I mean, that was very real to me. And like there was actually a band called Jesus Culture that like the girls you'd be seeing, you like hear them, and they were like way too progressive of a church, like and of a band for like anyone I knew to listen to besides me and my friend group. But that she would step away from the mic and you could hear her like while the band's just playing, like absolutely railing some tongues, like you know?
in between.
Yeah, in between, so you could hear her just like in the background, just like
Very
so
cool.
joyfully like singing in tongues.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
You know, it's fun. I never sang in tongues or spoke in tongues, but the just like shamalama hashbaz gu rava
It's that. Yeah,
stopala.
it's totally that.
When making music, writing music, sometimes I'll just be like,
Yeah, feeling out the sounds.
and then it ends up becoming like the foundation of the words that come later. It's just funny. It's like conscious. That's what consciousness does. Like that's how it just works.
Our brains
but-
can just do that.
Yeah.
It's not that crazy.
But your church didn't do that, but
No.
you did that.
So as I started to learn about stuff like that, because I started to get mentored around my junior year of high school by like some people who were either in college or out of college, like a little bit older friends.
Seems like mentorship is a big deal in Christian.
Yeah, it totally is, especially when I got to like college ministry.
Got your anti-FAP sponsors. You got
No FAP, not November, just life, baby. Oh my
day is
God. You know, I started because of how zealous I was and because of how much I cared. I was like, well, damn, there's scripture supporting these things. Like there is, like in healing, and Jesus talks about like there will be like the works that I do. The people who believe in me will do my works, and it's just like, well, Jesus healed people. And I started learning about people who healed people, you know, not like TV healing people, but just like people who are like who do house church style stuff. If you know anything about like house churches,
Yeah.
You know, way more like committed small group people who are like just trying to meet needs. Like I started getting into that, and I ended up leaving my church my junior year of high school and going to a non-denominational church.
Okay, I was going to say
Yeah.
that even the fact that you were like speaking in tongues when your general parish, whatever you call it, didn't do that is like giving red flag for a future faith crisis, because that's kind of how we were.
I
Like
wouldn't
wanting
have, I
to
wouldn't
go
have seen
so
it that
above and
way,
beyond.
but I was just like, well, shit, like Jesus
Yeah,
talks about this, and like,
yeah.
why doesn't this church talk about it? I started having issues with my church. You know, they kept having a guy come in.
Because every church is a hypocrite. So if you're like truly devoted to like the core thing.
Well, and that's their deal, is that like, well, we're different. We're Southern Baptists. That means something. It means that we don't teach this, but we teach this, you know, like, and we can tell you that other people aren't saved and stuff like that. And so like, I started learning more about it, and it made me mad. They would have a guy come in and just like do a sermon. He was like there all the fucking time. Like we had church, like we had a freaking chapel every Tuesday. Like we had chapel on Tuesdays of the week. So like worship service during school.
Can you get unsaved?
No.
Once saved, you are
Well,
just
it depends on who you ask,
kind
but
of a
no.
second anointing situation.
But they would have a guy come in and like rant about his, like, you know, he'd give his testimony. His testimony was all about being addicted to drugs and living on the street and almost dying and all this stuff. And it's super emotional. And like kids would come down, to like come forward. And there was like fifth and sixth graders. And I'm like, they don't know fucking shit. And as like a junior in high school, I was such a Christian boy that like the faculty and staff was very aware of this. I sometimes spoke at chapels on Tuesdays, or did like a reading or something. My
Book him on Instagram. Come to your chapel, do a reading.
My buddy memorized an entire book of the New Testament and wore chains over himself and recited it from memory. Like once, like that was what my crew was about.
I'm telling you, Christian pageantry is
it's fucking tight. It's honestly cool as shit. But like we would be like me and my friends would kind of go to the back, and anytime anyone would come down, especially if they were younger kids, they would like, because there's not enough faculty and staff to like kind of send kids to if they're having like, oh, I like want to profess faith in Jesus. Like they would send them to us as well, and we would go out back and like sit with them like on these couches and stuff, and like just like kind of process what's going on with them. And we were always pissed off about it because we were just like, this guy is just fucking scaring kids like by like bad evil stories, and like they're not having a true faith profession. That's where I was at that point. And it's funny is that same guy like who I was like having kids come to me like crying like, I just don't want to go to hell. And I'm just like, ugh, I was so mad. I was like, this guy is such a piece of shit. I like profess faith like to one of his talks in like 5th or 6th grade. It was him at a summer thing when I was like 12 or 13. And then like by the time I'm 16 or 17, I was like, fuck that guy. Like he's scaring kids into like a fake like faith with Jesus.
Red flag.
Yeah. And so, but like, no, that's like a green flag for me. It's just like, no,
but
really
red
know.
flag for future faith crisis.
Yeah. Future faith crisis. So I ended up at a non-denominational church.
So you're like simultaneously like becoming fundamentalist and progressive at the same time, which was same with our exit out of Mormonism.
Yeah, we've talked about
like
that
getting deep into the, trying to figure out what like the original intent was, how to really make sense to everything right, while also reckoning with some of the problems of fundamentalism.
I mean, I could like identify problems that I saw in the church. Like I cared about that. I was like, that's not right. Like that's like the Bible doesn't say that we should be doing it like that.
And churches do not like, in my experience, they do not like.
They do not like. And they do not like 16-year-olds fucking getting uppity about that shit either. They hate it.
Did you see yourself becoming a pastor one day? Like, did you imagine yourself?
My goal was always to be a missionary. 100%.
Is that different from a pastor?
I mean, intentionally moving across the world to go like reach people for Jesus.
Okay. So in like somewhat of a leadership role.
Not so much in a church setting necessarily, but like moving to the Middle East to go reach people
White
for
savior.
Jesus. I mean, literally being a colonialist, but that's a whole thing. But
I used to imagine myself becoming a seminary teacher, and then I found out that you couldn't be like married and be a seminary
Women
teacher.
teachers don't get paid.
Yeah, so then I was just like, okay, I'll be PR
they even let women do that though.
Well, up
'Cause it's not
until
an
they get
authority
married,
position.
but the minute you get
That doesn't
married,
happen.
they don't let
Only
you.
men.
There's not a single
Women
woman who
keep
ever,
silence in the
no
church.
women ever
So
spoke in church on
seminary in
Sundays.
Mormonism though is more like, yeah, that's crazy.
That is fun.
Seminary Mormonism is just kind of like teaching kids 5 days a week or once a week if you do homes. But
Is it just like every Sunday thing?
It doesn't have. I don't think it has the same authority as it does in evangelicalism. It's more just like a little like church class that kids take.
Okay. Well, yeah, there was like stuff like that. There were women's groups, and that was run with women by women. That's fine. But like seminary, in terms of evangelical thing, is like college for
Mormons
people who want to
use
go.
the word.
We
Mormons
abuse
that's
that
different.
word for sure.
Yeah,
We
okay.
give the wrong impression there.
I was about to say no.
I've been to the seminary, and it's
You
like you
don't.
have a theological degree from where?
You do not get to go to seminary as a woman. I guarantee it. Maybe that's different now. I don't know.
Well, seminary literally derives from the word semen, so you've got to have.
The proof is in the pudding.
Ow. Speaking of missionaries, you were telling us before that you did end up going on a mission, right?
Okay, this is
did?
this is a lot to deal with. One of those guys who's mentoring me, he's a little bit older. He was mentoring my brother, who's 2 years older than me, and he was very serious about his faith. He's the one I had learned about Calvinism from, learned about predestination. Eventually, pushed me out of Southern Baptist Church, and went to a non-denominational church. My school sponsored a mission trip for every junior or senior class. You got to go on one. It was part of what you paid for to go there. Usually international. And it was like, that was like the photo opportunity for hanging out with brown kids. And we helped like make running water happen at this facility we're building in a jungle in Guatemala. And you're like, that's so cool. Like, and they come back and they give a speech at like a chapel on Tuesday.
But the pump doesn't work.
And like, who
They
gives
don't do any maintenance.
yeah,
when you
who gives a
later.
fuck? Like, are we giving them money? Are we meeting any needs? Like, no. And so my senior year, I hadn't gone on my mission trip yet, and I was signed up to go to Budapest, which is super cool.
Hungary?
Yeah. And I did not get to go because I apparently had prior commitments to the sports that I was in. And that was the last one of the year. Just cross country, like running. Like I was like, so fucking stupid. And I got pissed off about it. And so I got together with this guy. And he and my brother and another guy had actually gone to eastern Turkey, like 2 hours from the Syrian border, to like go. They were there for like 3 months one summer. Like my brother was like pretty serious for a while, you know, about like his mission, like ideology and what he wanted to do. And they were like with two guys who like trying to make a house church get started, like bare bones, like in a place where like Christians do actually kind of get executed, like not even like a joke. And it was like kind of scary. And my parents had it was a whole deal.
Fun fact, when I was in Turkey, I was wearing knee-length shorts because I was Mormon at the time and had to put on a thing that made it floor length. The knee length was less.
Yeah. They were like, but they were far out there, like in the middle of nowhere, you know, in a town that has like 1 million people, like out in the middle of the desert, like kind of being serious. And so that guy had also been to India to go help a house church out there. And like, he was way more serious about trying to like meet serious needs. Like he was way more of a practical kind of missionary, not just like, I want to go save people, but like we have to like meet needs. We have to provide like opportunities for people.
That's
we have like way more like, no, this is right. This is how it should be done kind of deal is how I felt. And so I got together with that guy and a number of my friends who also didn't get to go on that same trip because of the same reasons. We were all on the same like cross-country team. We raised money on our own. We like went ahead and organized a trip to go to India and meet that same pastor that guy, this older guy had like gone to before. So we went to India for 12 days and it was wild. It was cool because we raised like, I mean, essentially all we did was go around to different house churches and like hang out with the kids, like talk to them. And like we did just straight up go do street witnessing, which is when I casted demons out of people.
Whoa.
Because I was doing that at the time.
Oh my God. We're about to see pre-Hot Tom.
Pre-Hot Tom for one.
Non-hot Tom?
Non-Hot Tom.
Oh my God.
God.
Oh my God.
This is how bad things are bad. Also, so we had like a 14-hour layover in the Delhi airport because we then had to fly down to Bangalore. So we were just like literally living in a humid airport for days.
Okay, but Tanner, why is this every guy I would let ruin my life at BYU Idaho?
Absolutely.
That's also so.
And you know, there's something like truly innocent and pure and wholesome about it. Like I get it as someone who went there, and like you really go with your highest intent. Like
and so like I was saying, how we cared way more about doing a mission trip in a way that wasn't total bullshit.
That's
because like that's how we were. We were all that serious. We raised the money to do this. I had to get like $2,500. It was a lot. You know, sending out letters to friends and family.
It feels like very typical that just because I'm seeing the similarities in you two because you're both born in these religions, like your earnestness is what got you out, just because it wasn't.
We've talked about that.
Yeah, I mean that's beautiful that you were able to do that.
And so part of what we ended up doing a lot was like we traveled around to different house churches with a couple of different pastors who like this is their church. It's
is a house church just like a branch, like just a mini
you're looking
church?
at it, yeah.
It's
like
just somebody opens their home. This is a concrete building with no ceiling on it, and this is where they have church every week with kids who live in the trash heap next to them, and they like feed them with the money that they can get.
So nice.
Like, and that's the thing, like what the difference I feel is that we were like, also we had raised extra money for our trip, and so we gave a couple $100 to every single one of these house churches, and they were like, this will feed these kids for like the next 3 months, you know. And it was just like, damn, like holy shit. We went to a leper colony, actually, which I didn't even know still existed. But there's still people with leprosy in India.
Is there people that get leprosy in America ever?
Not really. You have to be, from what I know, you have to be exposed to it a lot over a long period of time to contract it.
It's actually been rediscovered in Florida recently.
But it's not that kind of contagious.
Why is it still a thing in certain... What's the thing they don't have access to that they need?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it's a vaccine. Maybe it's just like catching it early enough. But these people essentially, because they just don't want it becoming like anymore, the government pays for them to go live in these concrete cubes out in the middle of nowhere outside of the city. Like, so we drove like 2 hours down the shittiest road I've ever
real Christian shit.
driven down. We drove down there to go like meet these people, and I don't know if you know what leprosy does, but you lose your appendages, your nose, your feet, your fingers, your toes, like they all rot off, your ears, they rot off. And we went out there and all these people were just like, your eye, like most of them were blind because their eyes rot out. And like they would come up to us, like some, you know, plenty of them weren't blind, but they would come up and they would give us namaste with 2 nubs and want to shake my hand. And I like shook these like extremely very gross, I mean very like just rotting appendages of these people, like,
whoa.
And we like brought them like a ton of food that we bought with the money that we had, like, because they just don't get a lot, and they live literally in a concrete cube.
Okay, that is what Jesus was talking about.
And that's what I'm talking about, is that it's like we are doing this differently than what I know the school sponsored trips like that they were doing were. And like still I have tons of photos, as you can see, with like, you know, just like brown kids hanging off of me and like having fun, but like it was serious, you know, like this is us actually this is a Muslim school group that we just chance encountered while doing a walk.
Like, let's just preach.
And then they were like, hey, there's some white people, like what's up with their deal? Because like we were in a random ass place, so like white people aren't just like here, you know. And so like that guy, he was like the pastor, he just like sat him down, and we had like little skits that we had rehearsed to like tell Bible stories to kids. Went ahead and did it in front of like 300 kids. I mean, that's me, like, preaching the gospel to like 300
This is how
kids.
I imagined a Mormon mission. I'm experiencing mission jealousy right now. I'm like, this is what they pitched it to me like.
You know, and it was on this same walkabout. There's a neighborhood just behind us over here that we're walking through, and the pastor I was with, we got split up in like groups of 2, and me and my buddy Lucas, who I grew up across the street from, we like go into this house, and the pastor's like, these people are possessed by demons, okay? Like, this is like what it is. Like, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna like expel the demons. And me and my boy Lucas, we're just like, we like this is where we're at with our faith. It's like we totally believe that spiritual warfare is real, that it's an actual thing that's affecting the world, and that we have legitimate power like over demonic forces. I mean, we like prayed for healing over people. Like, I have a story where like I prayed for a man on crutches who could not walk, and he like threw his crutches down and walked away, and said he was like burning while we prayed over it, and he walked away.
Tom,
and we like,
what do you make of that?
Right? That's what Abby says too. She's like, what the hell do you think about that? And I was just like, well, I also did watch his wife run back and grab the crutches and bring them to him down the road, and he started using them again. But like at the end of the day, we absolutely lost our shit over that.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, we and friends at school knew. Like a friend of ours, he got hit in the nose like so hard he like probably had broken it, and we were like, dude, can we pray for you? And he was like, yeah. Like people knew that that's like kind of the level that we were on.
Wow.
So like I know. So we're in India. This is like junior and senior of high school.
And by the way, I like having done psychedelics have given me a little bit of insight into some of that phenomenon. I really think we're like very mimetic creatures, and we vibe with each other. And even if you don't want to see it or as energy, it is. There's like a stimulus reaction.
And yeah, I've experienced it even just doing yoga.
And, yeah, exactly.
Like putting intention in various parts of my body, being like, that is an indescribable feeling that I've never felt.
And you can
before.
definitely like give somebody a surge of positivity that may not play out long term.
And who knows? You know, that was just a random guy on the street.
Yeah,
that we're just like, hey, can we pray for you?
You know, the placebo effect is real.
Like, and I don't have any issues with that. I did for a little bit actually. I was like, damn, I don't know what to do about that.
Well, it's important for deconstruction, right? Because you have all these things everyone says, right? Like, I just know what I know. I can't deny what I've experienced.
I mean, and like this demonic episode that we had as well, also truly like difficult to reckon with. I mean, not quite still anymore. I'm just more at peace with it. But you know, we go in and it's just in their home, you know, like some brick, you know, home, concrete building, and just like these people, like the pastor starts talking to them, and he's just like, cool, we're going to go ahead and talk to the demon now. And we were just like, all right, like here we go. And like this person, he was like started like snapping and talking to them, and like it kind of in this rhythmic way. And this person started like
the pastor started.
Yeah, he drew them out. Essentially, is how I reckoned with that. You know, because we didn't understand what he was saying.
That is so interesting.
But that person, their eyes rolled into the back of their head. Like they started like almost like floating on their tiptoes. Like they were moving in a way that was like very strange. Like just weird. You know, like very light and floaty and just kind of like swaying a little bit. And they started speaking in a voice that I've like never heard before or since. Like actually very, very weird to experience.
Whoa.
And we like very much sat there.
Like
and
what
like,
kind of words can you do it?
I mean, it just like, literally think of like a stereotypical demon voice in a movie. But something serious. And it was like an old lady. Out of an old lady.
Well, I feel like there's certain psychics who do, and you're like, the voice is definitely different enough that it gives people.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot to take in, and it was weird that he like knew that they were going there beforehand. That's something that's kind of clued me into this fact is like, I think this person is obviously mentally unwell in some capacity, and like potentially they have like a personality disorder. They have something going on to the point where they can like they can switch between like modes and states that are like wildly different. Honestly, like I don't lose sleep over this experience, but like, I mean, I was like standing there like in a like shaking, like weeping, like praying like a demon out of this woman. You know, it was like very serious.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm even like tearing up now just thinking about it because it was so raw.
Yeah.
It was like, man, we've never been in a place like this. And we like, I remember we stepped out of that house and we were just like dead silent for like half an hour. Whoa. Like didn't speak. Like we were just like what the fuck just happened? You know, like is that and also like, is that pastor going to go back to that person and check on them? Are they going to keep seeing them again? Like, is there any kind of like follow up like that's good and a positive thing for this person, or are we just kind of like showing up as white people and doing some weird shit to them, like traumatizing them? Like it's hard to reckon with that. But it was, I mean, not a light experience by any means, even if it wasn't like, you know, what you want to call real, whatever.
Sure.
Extremely serious.
It was very real at the same time.
Very real. I've never seen anything like it. And that was like right there, like next to a bunch of kids who were like, so we went to that area because they're all Muslim, and like Muslims in India get shit on really hard. I don't know how aware you are of that.
Oh yeah, huge violent history.
Very, very intense violent history, and we were like witnessing to like Muslim people because they do not get talked to kindly by anyone. So they were receptive to a bunch of white people showing up to their impoverished neighborhood.
It's so interesting because you, in a place where like their true needs are not being met by like the systems they're in, you as white people are showing up and you are providing hope as much as we can. And this is like a classic example of how like things aren't black and white, because it's like it came from a pure place in you. It did produce probably more, like it sounded like you did do good, as much as we would prefer these people to have their needs met and to not. It's like there still was probably a net positive a lot of the time in that situation.
I mean, because we were intentional about
even
that,
if you're just like a stand-in for whatever, like doesn't matter, just to be like a figure that people can find to be a believable source of hope is going to be so useful for them in the absence of all the things they do need. So it's like, it's kind of beautiful.
It's easy to see the utility of religion and why we've evolved with it.
Totally.
It's also easy to see the ways that we need to these were training wheels for the human experience.
There's some reckoning. We need to get rid of them.
And it also does kind of enforce that sort of savior complex, which kind of enforces the idea that like my Christian ideology is the answer to everything, so you're not as focused in like what can I do to help like the systemic causes of
exactly. And that was why I appreciated this trip so much, even though there was, it was obviously problematic in ways, but at the end of the day, like our biggest goal whenever we left, and we spent months like training and practicing and raising money and like strategizing beforehand, was
more
just
than
like,
Operation Underground Railroad, man.
I mean, we met for months, like every single week, like once a week we met, this group did, like for months to get prepared and stuff. And it was just like, we did have a positive impact on lots of people's lives, even if it was temporary, like to alleviate someone's suffering even for a little bit was like, wow, I'm glad we did that, because I just know like how those school trips were going. And it was just like, you're hanging out. You're hanging out with like the pastor's kids and like the kids who are already saved, already in church. And there was like all the kids who come there, like the only reason they're here is because we feed them. And like they like don't have any parents, they don't have anything. They live in a trash heap. And and we're trying to bring them to Jesus, and but we also like literally meet their needs because they would starve if we didn't. No one else is taking care of them. And you're just like, cool, man. Okay, I'm down with that. I can get down with it.
I mean, and that is like,
that's what Jesus said to do.
So many people are leaving these Christian institutions because they're like, this is nothing that Jesus was talking about. I mean, Jesus is now getting canceled on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw today, but there's been like prominent evangelicals who are like, Jesus, no, that old message of the gospel, that's a woke message. It's time, like, that's...
We gotta go back to the Old Testament or some shit?
Yeah, literally.
Lord have mercy.
And it's like, but when you read what he actually said...
Well, you're heading in a direction with this, Tanner.
We both went very
I was about to say, you're heading towards my faith exit with that kind of talk.
Let's hear it. That's a great segue.
Also, it's funny, my dad went on that trip.
Oh, no way.
That's your dad?
Yeah, that was him in the 2011. And y'all know about my dad. Y'all know how that goes.
Rest in shit.
Rest in shit, piece of shit. So taking what Jesus said too seriously will get you places. It will get you outside of faith. Because, I riding this train, end up, this was my senior year, that trip. So then I go into the college ministry at my non-denominational church. I start getting mentored, as you were mentioning, how it's like a very common theme. They call it discipleship, where you're getting one-on-one or like maybe one to like two or three guys.
I got one-on-one
by like my youth pastors. I was in a group with that guy, and he was the head of the college ministry, and there was all sorts of other people who were mentoring, other guys and girls throughout. But honestly, because I was so aggressive about my faith, I got mentored by the guy who runs the college ministry. He really liked me. I can brag on myself. That was real. That was totally a real thing. It was just like, well, who is he going to mentor? And it's like, well, he chose me and like my roommates because we all cared. What do you do? Hot for Jesus anyway. And so we ended up, I think it was my sophomore year of college. So it was like 2013. I had been diagnosed with depression, was like going through some shit and like actually like having some answers to stuff I dealt with for the first time in a long time. Like I had insomnia for years randomly when I was a kid and just dealt with a lot of weird anxiety issues.
Insomnia for years as a kid. It was fucking brutal.
Yeah, absolutely. It made me a zombie for a while.
Weird to explain how brutal that experience is.
Yeah, just like, you sleep because you get forced to, but otherwise you don't sleep.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I was like in a waking kind of world for a long time. So that was like, oh, okay, cool. You're just depressed. Oh, and you have like pretty serious anxiety. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Diagnosed by my dad as well. So that's interesting.
Because he's a doctor.
He was my doctor.
That's kind of lucky. I
mean, you go to your doctor dad when you have doctor issues. Like, what do you do?
And could you see other people in your church who maybe don't have a doctor dad? Would depression maybe be sort of like minimized or like not?
Well, I'm sure, but also this was like 2013, so like I know we're in 2023.
When we all
came out as depressed.
Yeah, that's so true.
But before you could just be like on your Instagram. Instagram was like 3 years old or something at the time. Like you don't go on your Instagram and be like, my mental health issues. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's like that didn't fucking exist. It's like I got told by a doctor. Now my like 19-year-old sister, who she's just like, yeah, me and all my depressed friends, we like all have our issues, and it's just like whatever. Like, and you're like, wow, what a different experience. So I was in a very interesting place. I was extremely suicidal. I was really close to taking my own life more than once.
And is that because you're wrestling with Christianity?
No. That was just happening to me. I was in college struggling. I was doing Middle Eastern studies, so I was taking Arabic as a language. It was a 6-hour class. It was Monday through Friday for 2 hours every day, 3 or 4 hours of homework, seriously, a day. Like, I was not succeeding well, and I was struggling. High school was easy for me, and college was like not. I had to actually try harder. So that was all like stewing. And then with my discipleship group, we went ahead and did a study of just the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And each one of us got one. We had to go through and write down the commands of Jesus anytime he said a command. So it was like, if he told you to sit down, if he was like, everybody sit, you would write down, sit down. And then it was just like, okay, well, like, does this apply to us, or is this applicable just to like that moment? It's like, okay, well, obviously he's not telling me to sit down, right?
It's a smart exercise to do.
Yeah. And so we each got a book, we went through the whole book, did that. And I was just like rocked to my core over it. Like absolutely shattered by like just taking it for what it was. Because when you're like evangelical, you end up spending a lot of time not reading just what Jesus said. Yeah. Spend a lot of time going through Paul, like going through the New Testament, but not so much with Jesus. Because we all know the Jesus story. It's like that's not really our big issue. It'll get referenced, but it's not the focus anymore.
Which is hilarious.
Which is so funny.
Especially because I found out recently Paul didn't write a lot of Paul.
The book of Paul. He did write a lot of Acts, Romans, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, Galatians.
Yeah, like a lot of it was written like hundreds of years after Paul or whatever.
Yeah,
anyway.
it's interesting shit, but that's like what people get so hung up on. That's what a lot of like, let's get into theology. It's like, well, it's not really what Jesus talked about. Like Paul expanded deeper and went into more like aspects, and Peter did as well, and John did. Mm-hmm. But like if you just read the Gospels, it is damning of every single Bible-believing claiming person in the entire world. Jesus damns all of them to hell.
And that's that on that, folks.
There we go.
Jesus damned y'all to hell. Me too, guys.
Hot take, but
From Hot Tom.
hot takes from Hot Tom.
That's your show.
Yeah.
That's a show, isn't
It's a
it?
great start.
Fucking fine, whatever. I'll give in. The influencer life maybe is for me. I need to borrow your ring light though.
Absolutely.
You're
It's
cool
all
to
yours.
it. You don't choose it. It just it is a self-evident.
We all are
truth.
selected before we're even born.
Oh my God.
Like
Oh,
this.
goodness of
Those
God.
he predestined, he foretold, and those he foretold, he saved.
Yeah, it was you all along, baby.
Thank God. Oh my God. I say shit like, oh, thank God, like way too much for how I feel. But I went through that, I'm with 3 of my roommates, right? 3 roommates, me, and then our college leader, like the minister of like a church that has like 5,000, 10,000 people. It's a big church. And like, nobody seemed to care too much about what Jesus said. They were just like, oh yeah, so here was the study, and like,
Literally
Here's
us
how I
in our
felt about
faith
it.
crisis.
Yeah, working
That was us.
working for the marketing department right next to the multi-billion-dollar shopping mall where there's like
And
a bunch
you
of
try
homeless
and bring
people.
it
And
up
we're
in
like,
Sunday school, and everyone acts like you're so weird.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is just but because it's not like the mainstream Ensign article that month take.
Yeah, and it was wild because like the Calvinistic aspect of it, the whole predestination thing was like, man, Jesus is like, you will like, there's a passage, I actually looked it up because it was like so pivotal for me. It's in John 14:12. He talks about how you will know my people, like who believes in me, essentially by their works, which was a bit of an odd thing because you are not saved by works as an evangelical person. It's always by faith. But he's just like, you will persist in your good works, in doing what I have done and like imitating me, if you actually believe in me, essentially. And so I was like, there's like a kind of a sign that shows there's a way to see if a person is truly a saved Bible-believing Christian. Like a born-again person will do what Jesus commanded, essentially is how I took it. It's not that if they don't, they're not necessarily not saved, but they're not doing what Jesus said to do. It was like kind of this like little fine teeter-totter line. And so I was like rocked by that. I was like, oh my God. And all he emphasizes is like, visit the widows and orphans in their suffering. Sell all your possessions and give them to the poor. Like, go to sick people and like take care of them. Like that, he just emphasizes that over and over again, and I felt terrible. So I tried to change my life. I like started volunteering at a soup kitchen in my hometown. Like started trying to find things to sell when I literally made money by selling plasma, like my plasma every month. Jesus. Once I got $50 a week. Like, yeah, I know. So I was like, I don't have anything to fucking sell. I'm like so broke. I have almost nothing. And I was just like, well, maybe that's the point. Like maybe I'm supposed to be suffering. Like,
You're taking
I'm serious.
Christianity to its up, like
But that's
most,
what Jesus
like,
wants
at face
from
value.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's
right?
what Paul would even tell you to do. Is just like, why are you like what? Like I was so mad at like anyone who owned a home. I was like, that's fucking bullshit. Like owning a house is absolutely against what Jesus preached. You should not own a house. You should not have that nice car. Why do you fucking have those things? If every single person I knew who professed faith sold their things. Like literally, like, and the thing is, it's literally true that if Christian people actually did all those things, the world would literally be different.
Oh, totally.
Like would literally be a better place. But Christians do not do it. They do not do what they have been told to do by their fucking savior. It's fucking wild.
Damn.
I know.
I'm like clipping it everywhere.
And it totally gutted me. And I was trying so hard for a while to like just do those things. I was like, I have to. I was like, I can't believe it was so hard for me to see. I felt dumb, and I started trying to, and like kept running into kind of, roadblocks to it. Or it was like, I don't like doing this, or like, I can't show up.
I actually can't just live on the street.
I can't show up all the time to like the soup kitchen. I can't show up to like go help these people. Like, I just can't always be doing that. I have things going on. And it was like, well, maybe I need to stop going to school. Like, it was everything, everything. And I was devolving so quickly. And I was also like, like I said, I was extremely depressed. So I had like a lot of cynicism just towards my life in general without necessarily thinking that I was attaching that to my religious experience. Wow. But when all this started culminating, what ended up happening was essentially that it gave me the time of, I was able to give myself the time of day to be like, why don't you want to do these things? Why are you struggling to like follow through on what Jesus said to do? But yeah, it was essentially, I like confronted my group. These guys who I'd lived with for 3 or 4 years have been getting discipled with this whole time. I told them to their faces, like, none of you here care about each other like you think you do. None of you care about your faith like you think you do. You would have cared for me whenever I was suffering through this depression. Like, you would have comforted me. You would have come to me. Like, you would have been doing what Jesus said. None of you are. Like, this is all a facade. Like, all of you are lying. 2 of those roommates a couple weeks later were just like, there's too much darkness in you and I have to move out. So easy way to get kicked out. And especially when like I stopped going to church and I stopped showing up to, Wednesday night stuff and whatnot, instantly I don't have any of these people in my life. I realize none of them text me. None of them actually care about me. We are just always at the same things. We have such deep relationships, but we are not actually like, we've not had to put in the work of becoming real friends with each other through work. It's all been through faith, through our shared faith. And that was like, the only friends I had were the people at the climbing wall that I worked at. And that is why I leaned so hard into rock climbing for the next 10 months.
Honestly, a really good coping mechanism.
Yeah. It's so interesting that as you got more into like being kind to others and being compassionate, it's almost like by being in that pursuit, you like leapt up a stage in James Fowler's stages of faith, because you like in doing that you realize that it's not specific to this one ideology, or it like removed your tribalism in a weird way. So then you didn't need to be Christian anymore. So in that sense, I feel like Christianity served its truest like Jesus-y purpose, like what I imagined the guy named Jesus might have been going for. Because you didn't need the arbitrary...
He certainly did not care about any of the bullshit pageantry, any of the church stuff. Like, he doesn't care about... Like, if you want to believe in Jesus, like, most of what he said's pretty fucking decent. Like, overall. It's like, yeah, do what he said. Like, it would be a great world if he did.
And the kingdom of heaven is
I dare anybody to actually do it, though.
Yeah, that's the thing, is, like, first you showed that if there was a true profession of belief, these exact works were followed, and they weren't being followed. So you could see these people don't, by their own definition, don't truly believe, and I don't either.
And people don't like hearing
what we're bonding over is the pretense that we all do believe it and are all doing it, even though we can't and aren't.
Yeah, I was pretty much on my way out of church at the time. Like, I was going to be a house church person at that point, because I was like, we don't need this. The money in here.
I started going to house church too.
This is all bullshit. I was going to like a college like night worship, which is just like college students with like 3 acoustic guitars and like a djembe, in a living room, like 100 of us just like weeping on the floor, for Jesus. And I was like, this is what church is.
That does sound nice.
Yeah, that sounds.
I love weeping on the floor.
I love that stuff.
I would have loved it.
I was so into it. I was like a heavily emotional, like religious person. I was always weeping every Sunday, like very.
You are a tearful.
I know, I'm a crying boy. Hot boys cry. It is what it is.
It's so good to cry.
I was thinking what you were talking about, how Christianity kind of serves its purpose. There's in some like Eastern guru traditions, the idea is that like ultimately you transcend your need and dependence on the guru. That's what his purpose is to prove to you by your own like desire for somebody else to take the reins, that they just play you and play you and play you until you finally are like, fuck it, I'm doing my own thing, and they're like, congrats, you did it, you figured it out.
You just had to go through all my bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
But kind
of. And in a way, I kind of relate to Jesus in that way of like, he helped me in the same way that like a Buddhist guru or Zen master might propose a koan, which is a paradox that helps you realize a paradox that you're grappling with that you haven't fully wrestled with. And once you do, then you're like, oh, okay, well, I can let go. I can shed a bunch of things.
Yeah. And now I'm more freer. Yeah. It's interesting. I also have found that like as I've gotten older, and like further away from that, it's been almost 10 years now since I like truly left like my faith, that it's just like I am easily the kindest, most generous person I've ever been. The farthest away I've been from Christianity. You should hear the way some of my family has talked to me, which I'm sure all of you have experienced.
Yeah, good egg.
It's just so funny, like how like hard it felt then to like give money to people. I also didn't have a lot, but like now it's just like, oh, the homie needs money, like. There you go. Like
you and Abby both also have inspired me a lot in the ways, like viewing community support as community support, not the I am the elevated person who is extending to you, lowly poor, offering hand. It's like, hey friend, what's up? Like, hey, let's get lunch.
You
It's
feel
like
that?
very, oh yeah. And that's not something you would ever brag about, but I see it.
I don't know. I definitely learned how to be intentional, through like my faith experiences. Just like I need to get up. I'm trying to get up in your existential shit and change your mind about things. I can like be intentional about hanging out.
Should we do a different episode,
I
like
was
cut
gonna
and then watch
say-
do a reaction to like Bible Man?
Yeah,
I was wondering how we
Stomp and
wanted to
Step.
do that.
This
Yeah.
story has come to such a natural, beautiful end. I've
Yeah.
been feeling the exact same way, so I'm glad you said that. This is really special to hear this story. I knew that you were really evangelical, had a faith crisis. Like, obviously, there's going to be crossovers with faith crises, but it's like a special story, especially
It's
knowing
serious.
I mean, I generally feel like people leave high control groups because of their conscience a lot of the time. But yeah, it's cool that your story was like, you were led out by compassion.
Yeah, until honestly, like you, I feel like you're the first person I spoke to who was able to mirror some amount of that experience. And I guess you were similar as well, of just like, oh no, I was too zealous. Mm-hmm. Like I was so zealous that eventually I ended up leaving it. And that's how I've heard people say that. It's like, yeah, most of the people I've met who have left church were like the ones who cared too much. Mm-hmm. All the people who just like are just coasting through their faith and like don't care, they're like still going to church every Sunday. If you really give it the time of day that it deserves, because if it's really as serious as you say it is, mm-hmm. you would do that. Mm-hmm. You would give it the time of day. You would go as hard into it as you should. Mm-hmm. It's so funny how people, like Christian people, will say that they literally know the God of the universe who made everything, and like the best that they can do is show up on Sundays. Just like that's really all you can do for Jesus, and that's all you think he can expect of you.
They can also comment some just total douchebag things on our YouTube channel, Tom. Don't think it's nothing.
Right.
All right. They're really.
They put time into. We'll get essays.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
you wouldn't believe the
Two
righteousness.
sentences in, you've dehumanized half the world.
Now we do have there are some kind and intelligent Christians who
Of
frequent
course,
our page.
and the thing is, I've encountered them, and like I have encountered some Christian people who I was like, you're pretty close to doing what I couldn't do, and I was like, damn, maybe like I should like. I had a moment like when I was much younger, like still coming out of it. I was like, damn, like I have met some people who were doing like what I wanted to do. Like maybe it's not impossible, because I hadn't seen a single person who I ever thought had like actually lived what Jesus said to do. Isn't that crazy? To feel so alone in that feeling of just like, oh my God, like does nobody else see this like issue? Like the problem that
you get so frustrated by the prospect that
well, especially with the Calvinism attached to that, where it's just like, guys, like if I don't know if you are predestined, you are not acting in any way like you should be. And that is like the whole point. I kind of like at a certain point ended up thinking that pretty much no one I knew was actually a saved person.
Damn.
That I thought I might be one of the only people I knew who actually could maybe call himself saved. Damn. Because of that, like how aggressive I looked at the situation.
Calling an election made sure, baby.
The perseverance of the saints is what they call it. Which also fucked me up after I left, because I was like, I always had a thing about like, oh, anybody who fell away, like people, oh, they fell away. They don't go to church anymore. They're done. It's just like, well, they weren't saved to begin with.
Oh yeah, they never had a true testimony.
They never had a true faith experience. They never professed faith. And that's like perseverance of the saints as a Calvinist is like, you will persevere. You will not fall away. That is like how you will know that you are saved. And the second that I did, I had to like reckon with the fact that I used to put that judgment on people.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was like, where does that put me? Like, well, I don't care about this thing anymore. But like, was I ever really saved? And that's something I've actually only in the past couple of years been able to come back to some friends who are still Christians, who were part of that friend group at the time, and like talk to them for the first time about that kind of stuff in years and be like, dude, like, you know how I felt about my faith. You know I was serious. And they're like, oh, I know. It was just like being like, I had to almost like kind of get their like confirmation. It was like, no, you were serious about your faith the entire time. Because I almost like was going to gaslight myself into thinking that I wasn't serious about it.
Oh, damn.
Is that not so like even
Yeah.
outside of the church? Like I'm done with my faith, but it was just like, oh my God, like I am one of the people who like did not pursue. Like I didn't hack it. I was not I was not predestined. Literally not.
Well, what could you do?
I know,
predestined.
It's just so crazy that like at that point what I saw was like a structure was set up to convince people that they were predestined.
That's the secret, isn't it? That's the secret sauce.
There it is.
The superiority complex.
Yeah, it's so
one
fucked.
hell of a drug.
Isn't that so crazy? Like that I can even like that was like what I was reckoning with more than like I had a little bit of a fear of hell like for a bit afterward. I was like, fuck me, like oh no. But then I was just like honestly, like I got to such a depraved point with it. I was like, if I end up before this fucking Jesus, if it's truly fucking Jesus, I will just be mad. Yeah. I will just be like, fucking go, like just send me away. I don't give a shit.
I don't care.
I literally would rather suffer than like have to deal with the fact that you are actually real.
You seem like a colossal douchebag.
Yeah. You literally suck.
Give me 10 concise reasons why I should worship you at all. You sound like a psychopath.
Oh my god. Yeah. That shit is just so wild. And it still affects my life, you know? Like my relationship with my brother is so wild, like these days. It's so bad.
Damn, I'm sorry.
It's so negative, and just like he's just super about it. Like, and he had like kind of left for a while, and now has like kind of come back around to it again.
Doubling down.
He's doubled down. He's gotten married.
He's had a new perspective. He's seen how the world works, man.
It's very unfortunate, but he's very committed to dying in a foreign country for the sake of Jesus, which is where I was too for a long time.
I mean, if that's your goal, it seems kind of like provocative, right? Like you're kind of calling that in a way.
I mean, you can guarantee.
Is that like the Mormons have this myth, I think taken from the Bible, that in the last days there will be 2 prophets killed in Israel or in Jerusalem, and the body will be in the streets for a couple days and then they'll resurrect. We're always just thinking, any day now, the prophets are going to walk over there.
I mean, we didn't talk about any of this shit, but like, the amount of Israel praise that was in like my upbringing was unbelievable. The amount of I only just this year put this together.
Also some subtle anti-Semitism.
I only put it together this year, but the Great Replacement Theory was preached to me like verbatim. Sorry, I keep touching you without
nice.
without knowing that it was literally KKK propaganda.
Oh shit!
And it was like, you need to be having babies because Muslim people have this many children per family, and in 125 years they will literally have taken over the entire world. That's literally just Great Replacement Theory wrapped up in evangelicalism. Oh, that's literally
Mormons
KKK propaganda.
That whole thing into new and unique race of scripture.
But it was like, that was just like a normal thing to hear like on a Tuesday at school. It's been cool that you've wanted to do this for so long. I've wanted to as well. But I'm finally in the best place to actually have spoken to it, because if you tried to like 3 or 4 years ago, I would have just yelled at you and like walked away, because I harbored so much anger for years about this type of stuff. I'm still definitely a little heated right now, but
it like hurts.
We're in our audience, so I can,
yeah, I'm sure everybody can relate. It's very wild. It's like the one thing I can't be chill about.
Tom, you probably were going to plug our Patreon, which I know you're such a big
100%.
supporter of.
Also, I know for a fact, 100%, I know you need to actually subscribe and like the YouTube channel.
We don't remember to say that.
I do that.
So
I have that.
Notification bell, I've even heard, is a good one to say.
Yeah, you need to press the bell. You need to subscribe to their Patreon. These are my friends, and here's the real deal. If you don't give them your money, I don't get to hang out with them and do as many fun things.
That's true.
Support our friends.
I could not go out to dinner right now. Tom, I think you've been great, and I definitely think you'll be back on the channel soon, because there's just so much potential in your crazy evangelical past.
There's a lot to talk about.
We haven't got to Stomp and Step.
We haven't got,
but that needs its own.
Yeah.
We haven't reacted to my Stomp and Step scene and why I'm so good at dancing in a bad way.
I think.
No, you're an incredible dancer, not even in a bad way.
I literally cannot look at like what I did.
Totally.
What I did was unbelievable.
Well, thank you for letting us use it for content on the internet, on Al Gore's internet.
You're just gonna keep making me bare my soul, and it's fine. But God
somebody's
damn it.
gotta. Thanks for
Thanks
watching.
for joining.
Thanks for having me.
We love
That was so
you.
fun.
Go follow Tom on Instagram.